Well, I'm still pissed off about The Martian, but that's a whole other conversation. The comedy.
That was so funny. That was the funniest comedy I love the scene. Oh,
I love the song.
I was laughing all the way through musical comedy.
Oh my God.
Da, 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 stuck on Mars.
Silly, you know? I love a good screwball comedy.
So when you came to Zootopia with the theme of the Holocaust, it's the exact it's our other direction.
Yeah.
All together. Because you're very, very serious filmmakers.
We are very
Absolutely. You know, and, we're not funny like The Martian. We're not cut-ups like Ridley Scott.
He is crazy. He's a wacky guy.
He is a wacky guy. And so happy to be put in the comedy category himself. I was there that night with him. It was not
Yeah, he
good.
didn't
Okay.
He didn't look happy.
Yeah, when I think comedy, I think Ridley Scott.
Yeah.
You know,
It
just
was
with that
not-
name, Ridley.
How did you two get married?
How do we get?
It was a beautiful ceremony. San Simeon.
It was in San Simeon,
Yeah.
and
Cambria.
after a sweet night in Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, you had to then, because
I was.
the kid, you got to be fair to your child.
We were going to be run out of town on a rail if we didn't. It was a shotgun affair. You know.
This is California, not Arizona. Okay, anyway, I'm going to get thrown out of Arizona next time I go. But seriously,
Oh yeah, how do we get
how
together?
did you guys end up getting together? Yeah.
Well, Rich was very kind, and we got to a point on Zootopia where we had hit a point where we needed to flip the whole story upside down. We had, for the first about 4 screenings of the film, Nick was the main character, and we were approaching the story through his viewpoint, and we figured out that the answer to all of our issues that we'd had with the film was to flip it so that Judy was the protagonist. And Rich was already working on his next project at the time, and we asked him very kindly. He's like, "Would
I
you
had been
please?"
part of the story trust with this film.
So he has seen it.
So I'd seen it and been involved with it, but as an ancillary, kind of a voice, that would come in when they wanted to kind of screen some versions of the movie, and so I had some history with it.
And John knew that. John Lasseter knew that, and so John and we asked Rich if he would put aside what he was working on, which he very kindly did for about a year and a half, to come on to direct Zootopia with me, because we knew that if we were going to do this much to this movie in so little time, that it was not anything for one person to tackle alone, and it took many more people than ourselves. It was a real group effort to get the film done, because we knew what we wanted to hit with the film, especially talking about such a difficult subject. We wanted to make sure it was saying the right thing, so that was paramount. That was the top for us, and so and we all teamed up and built this together. And it's great that the studio supports things like that, because I think at other studios that doesn't happen very often. I don't think people are that gracious to say, I'm going to put aside what I personally am invested in to jump on to this other project that will not be an easy experience. It's like there was a lot of tough stuff we did in the last year and a half. It was a lot of work, and again, we didn't know that it would be the hit it turned out to be. It's always a question in your mind of, we love this film, but will the audience and the world love the film? The fact that it came out and has been accepted so wonderfully by the world is very humbling for us, and so we're very grateful about that.
So was the expectation that it was about something other than fun from day one? Was that was that where you started? Were you conscious of that? Because it's not. The conversation has been had about how the film is kind of layered, and how some people take away more of that issue about the idea of equality than others. And, but that was what you wanted to make the film about.
Well, the bias, as the film speaking about bias, evolved pretty naturally from our research. Like early on, we took a trip to Africa, to Kenya, and we had an experience watching these animals in a watering hole where we saw lions coming in to drink right next to zebra that they normally attack and eat. And we thought, this is really interesting, because there's sort of this truce that happens because there's something that they both need. They need water, and they need to come in and cooperate and understand that you stay over there, I stay over here, and there's this.
So this makes the Jungle Book a sequel to the movie.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
And then we watched, Shere Khan come up. He said, "Yes, I respect the laws."
You said it with a much deeper voice than
Yeah,
Much
I'm
deeper.
trying to do my best.
Much more.
But the Peace Rock was exposed. But he said,
The Peace Rock.
as soon as the rivers flow again,
Yeah.
there'll be trouble.
there's going to be some trouble, and we took a lot away from that.
But that experience of the watering, that's where that whole idea of like, okay, two groups that don't always see eye to eye, and we have
Shere Khan,
everyone
else.
everyone else.
a
No
little
one
more
sees eye to eye with
one-sided.
Shere Khan.
Pretty one-sided.
Yeah. But that's where we all built. That's where we built it from. The predator prey thing came from that, and then we really dove in. And as we were looking at what we were talking about, we thought, well, bias is a tough thing to talk about, but it was so compelling that we could actually make a movie, an animated movie that spoke to that, because these movies have a profound effect on not just the people who are working on them, but like generations of people who will see these films down the line. And it's just like Pinocchio and Lion King, and Lion King had a huge effect on families and talking about death with their kids. It's like it seems very dark, and Bambi, I'm sure, was the same way. But
Every Disney movie has to kill.
Someone's got to go. Someone's got to go.
Yeah, Nick and Judy. I mean, Judy's dead still. Still
she has two parents, but I would be worried if I were one of them.
I know.
The sequel's coming.
It's
and
like,
maybe it hasn't happened yet, but a good Disney protagonist, has to.
So when you made the turn, you were 4 or 5 of the screenings. I gather there are 8 or 10 usually through the whole process. Does everybody kind of feel this shift, or is there one person who said, "I know what we have to do, switch it over to Judy"? Or how does that?
I think it had gotten to. That's the great thing about working with John Lasseter, is that he will let an idea go the full end of the line before saying, like, okay, we need to move away from that, and giving a good idea, its day in court, and this was no different. And I think it had just gotten to the point where the group was able to look at it and say, okay, this is not, and it's never easy. I mean, to take something you've been working on for what you guys had been,
it was like 2 years.
2 years, right. In this different incarnation of Zootopia, and locations were being built, to that were specific to this version of the movie, and people had put in a year's worth of time building environments that were going to be lost, if we didn't follow through with this version of the film, but the story is the thing, if the story and the characters are not landing, and we don't care about what the characters want, and if the world does not feel compelling to us, then we are willing to kind of push that aside and say, well, what can we do to make it better?
But once you've all taken that hit, and take a deep breath and have some coffee or whatever, a few dinners, a few drinks, perhaps. How does that process of figuring out what the answer is?
Well, you feel it.
In this case?
As soon as we did that, there was something about, even as we were we tore everything down, and as we started putting it back together with this new idea of Judy being sort of the lead and being the one who's pushing the movie forward, everything started to kind of click into place.
So where did that idea come from?
Well, it was funny because for a while we thought the movie was called a two-hander. We thought, okay, we've got two protagonists with Nick slightly in the lead, and then because Judy kept competing with Nick, even we used to have versions that actually began with Judy as sort of a lead. Like you open the movie with Judy, and then it kind of turned into Nick's story. But everyone always had an easier time understanding what Judy wanted because her want was simpler than Nick's. Everyone got her right away, and then I remember people in the story trust saying, "Well, what if we just flipped it? What would that do?" But at that time, we just weren't in a place where we could do that, and then we finally.
Well, and it was still in that period of no, let's give this its due. You know, and that's not to say that the earlier version of the thing may not have worked, you know, in an alternate, you know, reality. But for what these guys, what Byron and Jared Bush, who's the one of the writers on the movie, what they were working with, you know, they wanted to try something, you know, a little different, where it was being told from kind of the city of Zootopia was way more oppressive towards predators, you know, and Nick, being a predator, was feeling that oppression, you know. So we were introduced into the world of Zootopia through the eyes of a cynic, you know, because he did not like Zootopia and how it was treating him. And Judy was kind of this more, she was very similar to how she is now, but was this kind of neophyte cop that was coming in that he kind of befriended, but she didn't really understand how the city worked, and but she felt like she was, you know, kind of complicit to this horrible oppression that was being, you know, leveled against poor Nick. And we found that the audience was confused by it, you know, because we designed this great city, you know, that we wanted to feel fun and vibrant, you know. However, a good portion of their population was being kind of, you know, being held under this boot of kind of oppression. Of
Clark gave up her shock collars and
right, yeah, and so it was hard to like that world, you know. That, well, can I really fully invest into this city that would do this, you know, to its citizens, you know, and what do I think of Judy, who's basically complicit to this system, you know, that she's kind of come into. So part of like flipping, it wasn't just flipping the protagonist, it was also, well, maybe we need to kind of strip out this oppression, you know, against predators. And maybe because from square one, you felt like this is a place that exercises extreme bias and prejudice against a group of people that live there. So he said maybe that should be a little more kind of under the surface, and maybe Judy is coming into this world, you know, and it should feel like our world, you know. It shouldn't feel like a dystopian kind of apartheid or a place where life is totally out of balance. It should feel like any big city, you know. And she is someone from the country, and we would talk a lot about it being like, well, if it were Manhattan, she's coming from Yonkers, you know, that this is someone coming from a smaller town to a big city, and then let her in kind of uncovering a mystery, also discover that there is this bias that is kind of under the surface of the city, and then she discovers there's a little bit of it in her also, you know, and then let her own that, you know, as this thing is kind of snowballing out of control, you know. And it suddenly started to feel like this is way more relatable, you know. It doesn't feel like science fiction or something where we're trying to kind of solve discrimination, you know, in the movie. That it's more about the individual, you know, kind of coming to grips with the issue, rather than fighting against it and coming out the victor as like I solve bias.
Yeah.
So as the father of dragons, as it were, as the father of the bias, was it when this decision is made, you all made this decision together?
Yeah,
Was there a sense of relief? Were you kind of mourning for your darker vision of Zootopia?
The thing that convinced me that it was the right way to go was a lot of what, like Rich said, is exactly in the pocket of what was in my head at the time. It was like when we switched it to Judy, all of a sudden it became much more relatable to our contemporary real world, like we live in. And then the movie, it was always about refining what the movie was saying. And now, because you have this character who believes in the good of the world, but has to go through this maturation story where she learns that things are much more complicated than she thought, and finds out, just like Rich was mentioning, that part of the problem lies within her. that was a much more contemporary way to talk about bias and prejudice than we had been before, because we were getting comments in early screenings like, this film feels like it should have been made in the 1960s. It feels like it was, two groups that are obviously not getting along. There's a vast, chasm between the two. Whereas in our world today, what we learn, and this is an education for me as well about bias as we did research into the film and as we kind of learned how to put this story together, that real bias in the world is pervasive and it's sneaky. It's really under the surface a lot of the times, but it's not obvious. It's not blatant a lot of the times. And even in talking to people who've around us and on our crew and in our families who've experienced those situations, it can be so subtle, but that makes it almost more poisonous and more dangerous. And especially when you talk about characters like Bellwether, who use fear of others to manipulate the population and stuff. And all these news stories kept coming up as we were making the film, and it was weird how timely the film was. And it was not from our intent to make a message movie. We didn't go out saying, we're going to fix bias and prejudice, but we thought this is it's a very contemporary story to tell, and the more we kind of put ourselves in the film, like we both, Rich and I, had experiences with bullies when we were a kid, and we brought that to the table and we talked about that, and that's a form of bias. And Judy, as because she's a different size in this world, a different species, she's experiencing a different type of obstacle because of what she wants and what she can't get because of what other people believe in her. And so the fact that this fable aspect of the movie allows us to reach so many different people in the audience so that they can see themselves in their own struggles is great. And it's a great credit to what animation does so well. It allows you to kind of lift off this barrier that live action kind of imposes on us by seeing other human beings and kind of go, okay, well, I can treat these characters as symbols and stand-ins for people I know, or for me. I can relate to Judy in many ways. I can relate to Nick in many ways. And there's something that was, as we were putting it together, it just felt right, and it felt like finally we have what the voice of the movie should be, and it got easier for us, and it felt healthier. There was something about that. That's the only way I can describe it. Is like, as much as I hated to throw away all of that work that people did, and it wasn't just me deciding that, but as much as we all hated to put that aside and move on, the crew trusted us. The crew said, this is awful that we're having to put this aside, because they mourned that. There's a mourning period where you go, I miss that. But when you see the film start to take on a new life and you go, okay, now I really get it and it's really working, you can feel that. And that's when the energy comes back.
So you have a very intense year and a half, I guess,
Very.
from that point
Very
to
much,
putting out the movie. Is there a point during that which you're like, oh yeah, now we could feel, you can feel it's happening?
Yeah,
This
we
is
could
like,
feel the momentum of it. And suddenly, and just as like an ancillary director, that was involved kind of from the outside originally, that I would always hear Byron talking about, his vision of the thing, and there was a period in the earlier version that it didn't feel like that movie, and then immediately when we made these changes, and suddenly the characters are acting like themselves for some reason now. It's like suddenly the material is supporting who these characters are, and it's like, to me, it's like, this feels more like what I imagined that they were going for, or what Byron was kind of aiming for. This feels like, this is the right soup now,
Right.
And now it's just a matter of building the right story and getting the thing over the finish line,
Yeah.
In a short amount of time.
And you have the time-
amount of time than we
Yeah.
had.
do you have the time to think, oh, this is going to be a hit?
No.
I don't think we never bank on that. I don't think, right? Because this is like,
No,
who can tell?
I
right?
think that so much of my brain power is being used in making the movie that it's hard to even kind of project into the future. I get to a point where I'm so in the moment of making the thing. Like, it really does feel like I'm using every bit of memory in the computer, for this. It's all being dedicated to this, and it's hard to kind of to imagine like what's going to happen with it next.
Yeah,
So,
I think as long as I think we just look at it and we go, is this a good story?
Yeah.
Are we telling a good story? And I think even when I think about the films that I love, that I fall in love with, they're not all big spectacles, they're not all animated, they're not all flashy films. Sometimes they're tiny little personal stories that just where all the gears and all the pieces just fit together so well, where I just go, oh, I love watching that and experiencing it, and it feels like, so I don't think we're trying to make a hit. I think we were trying to just tell what's the right way, an honest story.
well, I'm not suggesting you're trying to make a hit, but that feeling of, I mean, when the movie
Right.
locks finally,
Oh, right.
and you've survived this.
Then it starts to feel like, you know what, I like this movie because we watch it over and over again. We not only just in reviewing the making of the film, but then we will look at it in different aspect ratios for for television, for an airplane, in 4D, and it's like with shaking seats and things like that. That I would find myself saying like, wow, I'm really enjoying this movie.
Yeah.
Like I'm really seeing it all together and hearing the music and as it's coming together as one cohesive thing. I'm really enjoying this. I'm watching it like a new movie that I would go to a theater and see, and then having that feeling of I like this. So that's when finally the dust feels like it's settling. And I'm just enjoying it as a piece.
There's also like a phenomenon that happens toward the end. I think by the end of the time that we've been producing the film, the directors have seen the film so many times that we're in this weird sort of headspace where we know it almost too well, and so we do these screenings sometimes, like there'll be test screenings to see how audiences react, and it's great for us because then we can kind of just sit back for a second, not overthink it, and just watch this sort of living, breathing being as a whole, this audience. It's got a life, and we watch how it moves and reacts, and it's sort of like, I always think of it like a balloon. Are we keeping the balloon in the air for the audience, or is it falling on the floor?
Someone hit the balloon.
Someone hit the balloon up, and you're waiting for like a laugh
guys.
or some sort of surprise or some sort of emotional beat to kind of keep the interest. And you watch the kids to see if they're paying attention. You watch adults to see if they're laughing. You watch to see when they jump, or when they tear up or cry. You listen for that, and that's a good moment for us to, as sometimes people ask us if we like doing those test screenings, but I think for us it's a great tool because it allows us to kind of step back for a second and just see how a real audience would react.
I like them, because it's inevitable, and you can learn a lot.
Well, I think it's how the studios manage the cards.
Yeah.
That becomes the issue for
Yeah,
directors.
then
Then it becomes
I
like
don't
very
know anything
specific,
about
this
that.
joke, this character, or whatever.
But
just hearing an audience respond is critical, particularly with a comedy.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
That's
because
tough.
it's like, I think there comes a point where we need to know, like, is it just playing in my movie theater here, or will other people kind of react to that? And for an artist, filmmaker, to know that stuff is landing, with people that don't work at your studio that are, I like that part because I worked on that part, that it's just everyday people who, who are just acting honestly, reacting honestly, to know that it's landing, is just like, that's when I can exhale.
Well, I know when I saw it, I didn't know what the dating, and I kind of felt like maybe this is minor Disney. I don't know whether it's like it's not in the Frozen slot and all that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, wow, that movie was so much better, so much more rich and thoughtful
Well,
and
that didn't
adult
suck.
than I expected. Well, it wasn't just that it didn't suck. It was like it was about something. It was my 6-year-old had a great time watching it. Also, I mean, it was like. It just worked in a way. It was like, wow, that's one of the best Disney movies.
Oh, well, that's great.
Of the modern era.
It was funny because I think like Ralph in a way, it doesn't easily fit into a niche. It's not like Disney has done a lot of movies like this. It feels like it's sort of
They're kind of contemporary comedies, I would say.
Yeah.
They're not fairy tales, they're not princess movies, they're not action adventure movies.
There's no like magic in the world, but the fact.
And I like that I can't remember which magazine called it Disney's or the least anticipated movie of 2016. It's like, I'll take it.
Thanks. It's like thanks.
I'd rather be the least anticipated and then overperform than like the most anticipated and then kind of
Yeah.
So then when it overperforms and then really overperforms,
Right.
is that like having wings on your back? I mean, it's like wee.
Well, it's surreal, because it's hard for me to to visualize 900 million anything,
No, I know what
you know,
that is.
dollars,
Pesos,
otters,
maybe.
you know, or whatever, you know, chairs. I can't even imagine that big a number,
Yeah.
you know, and to know that people are loving the characters, they're loving the world, they've fallen in love, you know, with Nick and Judy the way we did when, you know, we're making the thing. It's gratifying, you know.
Is there a particular part of the movie that you're most proud of?
I always go back to the scene under the bridge where Hops is apologizing to Nick. I think that the performance that Jennifer gave there and the acting that our lead animator on Hops, Kira Letamaki, did there is it's like a tour de force of animation. It's like when I was animating years ago, I would have loved to have produced something that's that beautiful. Like I watch Hops so genuinely break down, and I believe it so much that I can't convince myself that is not a real living, breathing thing. And I think that's an amazing thing that we have something in our brain allows us to watch these symbols, these things that are not alive, moving around, emoting and acting, and you can tear up, or they can make you laugh, and you can just forget that I'm watching a talking fox and a talking rabbit who's dressed in a police outfit, and you can get as emotional about that. I'm caring about this, and you care about the journey, and the fact that I worry about them. I worry about their welfare. I want Nick to find happiness. I want Judy to get what she wants. I want to see them succeed, and that's what I'm talking about with the good storytelling. It's like I love when a movie can make me care, I guess, you know, and that's what I'm really proud of what everyone did at the studio to make this movie about characters that make you care. So
It's one of the things I think is hard about actually adapting plays to film, is because it becomes more literal.
yeah.
And I think in some ways, the way a play is designed, it's not meant to be be that literal, and so you lose that emotional connection.
Yeah, it's true.
Because there's not any distance anymore.
That's very true. Yeah.
But this is obviously the other way. And yourself and your favorite?
Well, I would say I've got lots, but since you're talking about such an emotional one, I'll go for pure comedy here, and it's just the DMV scene.
Which was a late addition, I gather.
It came,
part of the next generation.
It was part of that
reinvention.
reconfiguring. That it was a scene that was the genesis of it was like a big bang, you know, where it like over the course of 2 days, you know, we had a meeting about, well, what are some locations that Judy could go to and trying to crack the case? Who are some characters she could meet? What are some funny things in the city that animals could do? And our head of story, well, we had two heads of story, and one of them was Jim Reardon, who's a very funny guy, and he said, well, what about we could have sloths working, and she could meet a sloth that works at the DMV, and we're kind of, oh, that's cute. And then suddenly the room kind of said, well, wait a minute, that's pretty good. Sloth, has anyone done that? You know, everyone's on their phone. Sloth at the DMV.
No.
It's never been done.
Yeah, it's never been done. So.
You know, so.
And you had to get really expensive voice talent then.
And we saw John Lasseter the next day for a totally unrelated meeting. And we said, we've got this idea about like a sloth working at the DMV, and John was, you know, and everything stopped, and we began like, it was about a 90-minute pitch session of jokes and then the actual like mechanics of the scene. And I swear, like in that 90 minutes, we kind of performed out loud verbatim what the scene is right now. It was kind of born that quickly, you know, and then began the long journey of, okay, now we got a board, and now we have to record it, now we have to, and how do we keep that same spark of, you know, because animation, the making of animation is it's supposed to look spontaneous on the screen, but the process of animation, there could be nothing more non-spontaneous, you know. It's like a spontaneous crock pot of stew, you know, it takes days, you know, to make. And that one was like just a shepherding of this idea, and just everyone kind of plussing it along the way. And making it into what it is now.
And when did the marketing department decide that would be the big pitch? Because that was the big thing that was out for
know,
most of those.
Well, it was funny because since it formed itself, that sequence, so quickly, and and once it got built, that was one of the first things we actually dove in and animated. I think pretty early.
Yeah.
And when people saw it, I think they just knew.
It was like, right on, okay, this is going in the trailer. It's
Yeah.
like, well, do we really want? No, it's going in the trailer.
It was the trailer.
It was the
That's what I'm
trailer.
saying.
Yeah.
Well, I think what people liked about it is that it so quickly told you what the world was and
Yeah.
what the sensibility of the film was going to be. Like, it was a smart contemporary comedy, and it let you know that it was going to be something that adults would appreciate too, because it's not talking down to the audience. It's not saying, well, kids don't know what a DMV is, so maybe we shouldn't do that.
Right.
It's saying, it's like, just
No, we're going for it.
we're going, going for it. And we were surprised how well it played around the world too, because we were worried about other countries not having a DMV, but bureaucracy and frustration with bureaucracy is universal. So no matter where it played, in China, in Belgium, in France, and Germany, everywhere, it got great reactions. Russia, huge reaction. Yeah, so it's crazy.
And now we know all the way back to the beginning of the conversation that your next film will be a Strindberg play animated. You are that serious guy.
How did you know?
You've got the dark animation soul.
Chekhov's gun. Someone's going to use that thing.
Don't use that gun.
Someone's going to use it.
Hey, everybody.
It's going to happen.
Hey, I'm good.
Anthropomorphic Chekhov's gun. Get over here, you little pea shooter.
Over there.
That would be a very timely movie.
You get
for-
Gilbert
Yes, it
Gottfried to
would.
do the gun voice. Yeah. Gilbert Gottfried as gun.
That could be the poster. I see it now.
I am Inspector Luga. They could all the muzzles
There you
and be
go.
the mouth.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
When they run out of car sequels, they'll make gun.
These guns.
Rifles. Rifles and guns. Thank you, gentlemen, very
It
much.
was great interview. Thank you, man.